Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech was the recent House resolution regarding scholarships, cash, and more. Good news for the Big 12, bad news for the Big 12, good news for some of the Big 12, bad news for some of the Big 12. And what did it mean for the Red Raiders? We're into it next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And thanks as always for making us your first listen. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you. And today we talk about the future. We're gazing into the crystal ball, so there will be some unknowns that are a part of our conversation, but there are some things that are now known as we look back to a conversation we had last week and have speculated on over the last couple of weeks and months as it relates to this House settlement. And now how this now will impact, obviously, roster sizes, scholarship limits, max revenue sharing capability, and even some potential NIL constraints as far as what has been a wide open kind of circumstance that could change to a degree moving forward. And obviously want to get into what this looks like, not only from an individual program perspective as it relates to haves and have-nots, but also a conference perspective. What does this mean for the SEC and the Big Ten versus what it might mean for the Big 12 and for the ACC? And within those conferences, what does it mean for an Oklahoma State as compared to what it might mean for a Central Florida or a Cincinnati? There are a whole lot of things here to process, and we'll have to wait in some ways until the rubber meets the road to really determine what the consequences are going to be, right? But obviously, as we have some resolution here, now there are a lot of things to consider as to how it could immediately impact those we're most interested in, that being the Red Raiders of Texas Tech. And as we talked about on a previous episode when we mentioned this before the resolution came to pass, there is in general, at least from my perspective, a good, warm, fuzzy feeling about the position Texas Tech has put themselves in. So hopefully a lot of their intentions will come to fruition. But as far as what it could look like for this program or for that program, I think I'm still encouraged by what I feel like the Red Raiders have done so far to best position themselves for this brave new college sports world.
Yeah, this is a lot, man, to try to process. One comment or question leads to 10 others. You know, what does this mean? And I don't know when we'll have a full grasp. But it's like trying to get a full grasp on rules right now in college athletics because, well, no, that was the rule last week. This week it's different. And it's okay, I just can't keep. But the numbers 85 and 11.7 have been ingrained into my brain since I've been doing this. And that's just what those numbers are significant and they mean a lot. And now all of a sudden you're saying, you know, to your, hey, wipe that out. That is no longer relevant as far as the 85 and 11.7. I'm talking about a football scholarship limit or baseball. Now 105 and 34 are the new engrams you need to make in your brain and remember those. There's a lot to get into here, man. So let's just stick with like football primarily here and then kind of try to get into what this may mean and kind of what this may look like a little bit. This was something that was going to happen. They were going to limit rosters or put a cap on a roster. I think we were fearful in some conversations. Hey, they were going to do this at 85. I think that, you know, no walk-ons and all those things, to which a lot of the coaches and a lot of the folks in the sport, not the administrators, the NCAA folks, were saying, hey, you know, I know you've talked about the NFL has 53. Well, if they get somebody hurt, they can go sign anybody off the street. It's kind of a revolving 53. They can kind of constantly churn it. And you're telling me we have to have 85 and we're stuck. We can't. So plus NFL has a practice squad and all that stuff. So bottom line is I think there was a happy medium found where you get to 105. And I think the Big Ten and the ACC actually wanted more than that. The Big 12 and the ACC, if word would be believed, they kind of wanted maybe a little less, which gives you an indication of how expensive this number may or may not be. And then we need to explain that. But the gist is this. After this year, like a year from, or basically right now, you can theoretically have 105 scholarship players. So with that, all the blue bloods out there, all the teams that you have to recruit against, they now have more ammunition to offer players and maybe take more of the good ones. And there's far less, so there's going to be some winners and losers here. And I just don't know if we've identified yet what those are, but this is going to be a byproduct of what you're getting.
I think the Blue Bloods is a good place to start with some potential winners, just to kind of spitball it. And I don't know, maybe it reminds you a little bit of the way that college football once was, where you had roster stacking going on, right? I mean, I don't know. It's the first thing I thought about. Well, are we going back to where we once came from, where Texas could load up a roster with every scholarship-worthy football player in the state just to keep them away from some others?
Because you basically give Kirby Smart and Ryan Day and some of these blue blood programs, you give them 20 extra spots.
Yeah.
What this will look like, and there's so many byproducts of now football going to 105, and it could affect a variety of other different sports because there's a cost with this. And all this revenue sharing, every time you increase the roster, those are individuals, so if this number was going to be at 110 or 120 or 105 or 95, you're now part of that revenue sharing number. You're now sharing it with the total of whatever you decided. So, 105 more expensive than 95, 105 not quite as expensive as 110 or 115 would have been. So there's that component. But I think what the way this is going to work is basically there's going to be a timetable. And for example, Joey McGuire or whoever's in charge of his cap or his roster management next, spring or whatever, will be able to, get pen to paper and ink a deal with up to as many as 105 players. You don't have to scholarship them all. There can be partials and you can do some different things, but 105 total. So, if you want to try to cut corners and all that stuff, I would be shocked if Texas Tech isn't operating at a max 105 from day one, scholarship and everything. So we'll see. Every school may not be able to afford to do that, but then you will put those players into a contract. And I think with that, here's your scholarship. Here's also the salary that we think that is part of the revenue sharing that we are kind of agreeing to. This part is fascinating because that's what we were talking about a couple of weeks ago or a week ago. Joey and those guys are already really down the road on a thought process of what a starter at this position looks like, what a backup at that position looks like, how to tier this whole thing. But ultimately you won't know what to do with it until you figure out how much money we need to build our football program around. Is it 12.5 million? Is it 15 million? Is it 17? Is it 16.3? Is it, don't know. So there's that whole dynamic. And keep in mind, every scholarship over 85 that you go with, there is a cost that comes with that. There's also a matching female scholarship that go with that as well from a Title IX standpoint. It is my understanding that you can, as part of the revenue sharing, that you must, because I think next year you can max out at 23.1 million is the max you can give out through the revenue sharing. You can actually add scholarships, I think, to like the extra scholarships that we're going to give out. And you can actually, that can factor into that. That's actually money that we've revenue shared with. And we can get into all the variety of different sports, but that actually, some of that money can count toward that figure. But there's a limit to it. You can't just go, we'll just give all these people scholarships and we don't have to give anybody money. That wouldn't be a competitive, smart thing to do. But anyway, so There's, and then what does this mean for some of these sports? I mean, there's a harsh reality here, because what you're gonna hear is that they may take some scholarships away from some of the Olympic type or whatever, and say we're going to pull these and we're going to give them to some of these other programs and that are making the revenue. Because I've heard the argument. I'm sure if you've watched any Olympics, if you read anything that's come across Twitter or whatever, there's a concern in the Olympics right now from a U.S. standpoint that with a lot of what you're seeing happen in this space could affect the Olympic pipeline, like in the next 4 to 8 to 12 years. To which college football players are saying, I hear you. However, our sport has funded the Olympic movement for the last
Right.
20 to 40 to 60 years. You know what I'm saying? I mean, because
Right.
you're seeing on TV these folks from across the world come to the college system and swim at Arizona State. That there's a stud French guy that just set a world record or whatever. He's from France, but he's at Arizona State. All the college system here is wonderful, but it's being funded by a lot of this money that college football has generated, and so that may change a bit. So to do you go alter or drop some of these sports if you're some of these schools? I mean, it's certainly very possible, because it's a dollars and cents issue, and not everybody can afford to play. I mean,
Yeah.
Tech's not dropping a swimming program because you don't have one. But I mean, the cross countries, the tennises, the some of the sports that just don't generate, or that are an afterthought to the general public. And it sounds harsh. It's just the reality of it. I don't know. I guess I don't know what Tech's stance would be, but it's very possible that some schools will have to take a long, hard look and maybe, have a tough conversation there.
Well, and I think one of the really interesting things as well, to stick with a Texas Tech specific perspective. First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. And summertime means baseball, burgers, and money in the bank when you're picking a winner with FanDuel. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone all summer long. So head on over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer by beating the heat with a refreshing parlay. An over-under play, or by getting the moneyline mojo working. Visit FanDuel.com and make a splash by adding a big win to your summer bucket list with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. I think one of the really interesting things as well, to stick with a Texas Tech specific perspective, is the potential reining in of NIL market value. Now, when you talk about something being market value, traditionally to me, that means whatever somebody will pay for it. That's the market value. So I don't exactly know, nuts and bolts of how they would plan to gauge this or enforce this, but there's some component of this resolution that involves a future where they are actually, I guess, regulating NIL agreements. And we're sitting here on the heels of a softball player just being paid over $1 million to come to Texas Tech. I know we've got large agreements elsewhere with guys like JT Toppin and obviously guys in the football program. So this has been good, I think, for Texas Tech so far. And I thought it would be heading into this era for programs of a similar ilk. We always knew Blue Bloods, Aggies, others of some type of persuasion in that kind of category had plenty of name, image, and likeness monetization happening in the shadows. But now that it's all out in the open, I really thought for some of these other programs who are mid-tier, so to speak, or at least not in that kind of well-financed as the kingdom of God category, and there's only a few, but there are some, this could be a really good thing, because if you had a or a couple of really motivated, well-resourced supporters or boosters, then all of a sudden you can play in a different kind of category than maybe you could under the previous system. So this I'm really, really interested in. And I guess at the end of the day, I'm kind of hoping that it's a lot more bark than bite as it relates to enforcement of these kinds of things. But they're going to try to do it. And I'm really curious how that's going to go. Because, again, when you're talking about market value, to me, Chris, that's a very subjective thing. So maybe I just see it that way. But I don't know what other way to see it. The market determining a value means, or translates to me, whatever somebody thinks you're worth and is willing to pay, that's your market value. And buddy, in major college athletics, that can get to be a really wild conversation really quickly, right?
It's the verbiage that I've seen is like, quote unquote, legitimate endorsement compensation,
Right.
or something along those lines. In other words, because I think that there was a lot of general perception, I don't know, from coaches, administrators at the onset of this talk a year ago or whatever, they really wanted guardrails. We want some parameters here. We don't know what's going on. It's becoming the Wild West. Well, then we kind of got used to the Wild West a little bit. I mean, just popping through the saloon doors and,
It's kind of fun.
That's right. Fill up that shot glass, and if somebody crawfishes on a bet at the table over here, I'll just shoot him right in the head, and then I'll just go to the next town.
That's
like
right.
Tombstone or Young Guns and Billy the Kid. Whatever. I mean, that's kind of how we roll.
Yeah.
But so I think that there is an attempt here to put some guardrails and parameters on it, but. Did you just get a softball deal done right under the? I mean, was the timetable there like really fortuitous? Because can you do that? Because if I'm understanding it correctly, and I've asked a few questions, it's got to be fair market. It's got to be it's subjective, as you said, which is tricky. Yeah. Because I'm with you. If somebody thinks it's worth that and they're willing to pay it, it's a hashtag America, right? I mean,
it's
damn,
worth that.
That's right. That's right. But I think that there's now going to be a clearinghouse involved, which those are not words that a lot of people will want to hear.
Always fun. Shout out to Jared Hicks.
And I mean, Jared Hicks. I think Michael Crabtree. There's a variety of folks that got. Keep in mind, I can't say institution by institution, but this is something that I think was expressed that they wanted, whether it's administrators or whoever, months and months and, maybe at the onset of this. And this is an attempt to try to rein it in a bit. But so you have to be careful. It's like, this is stupid. Who wanted this? Well, I think the general consensus was, hey, we like this. It's kind of fun, but man, we just need some just bumper cars. Just put a track around it so we can't get outside to save us from ourselves, essentially.
Which I love that we did it after like a couple of years of a Wild West trial run. It's like an intersection in Pakistan. They're like, okay, let's try it with no regulations, no lights, no stop signs. Oh, wait, we've had 1,000 car pileup. Maybe we should have some rules. I just love that after now what we all knew was going to take place, which was unbridled competition. To whoever has the biggest gold, then you're landing the biggest fish, I guess. And I don't know that you fish with gold, but you get the idea. I love now that it's like, oh, wait, we better do something else. I mean, who didn't see this coming? I'm kind of wondering if it was just apathy, a lack of desire or motivation, laziness as to why they didn't try to do it in the first place. I don't know.
And so I'm clear. I just don't know if I have a full grasp on if you'll be able to go, because Texas Tech is not alone in any way of some of these big NIL deals for athletes. Basketball players have been, there's plenty of reported deals and all that with basketball players, gymnasts at some of these places, and on and on it goes. So I don't know the role of a collective in the current agreement, and somebody that wants to sign an athlete and just say, I really want them to play for this sport and do this, and this is what, I just don't know if I have a full grasp of that yet. But it seems like there may be a process that you must go through there where it must get approved, a thumbs up, thumbs down, and it's got a 45-day window, but where the clearinghouse can kind of say yes or no. And
that won't be subjective at all. I'm sure every program will be treated just the same.
And I would also offer up that who's really going to follow this? Is anybody going to care? Is people are going to be like, hey man, I'll do what I want. I dare you to try to come after me. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be some of that too. So anyway, so there's that. I think that the collective, but the collective now will also be a part of.
First, today's episode brought to you by Ibotta, a free app that gives you the most cash back every time you shop on hundreds of items so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're buying. Other apps give you points that don't amount to much, but with Ibotta, just add your offers in the app, upload your receipt, and you can get real cash that you can cash out to your bank account, PayPal, or even gift cards. Join the over 50 million users and earn cash back every time you shop from over 2,700 brands and retailers, including Lowe's, Best Buy, and plenty more. And right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using the code LOCKEDONCollege when you register. So just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back and use our code LOCKEDONCollege. That's Ibotta, IBOTTA, in the Google Play or App Store, and use our code LOCKEDONCollege. Today's episode brought to you by Factor. Fuel up this summer with Factor's no prep, no mess meals and meet all of your wellness goals thanks to the menu of chef-crafted options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, even Keto. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in only 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you'll always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. What are you waiting for? Make today the day you kickstart a new healthy routine. With 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week, you're going to always have new flavors to explore. From breakfast to dessert, you can stay fueled with easy, nutritious options. So go ahead and treat yourself to restaurant quality meals that feature premium ingredients like filet mignon, shrimp, blackened salmon, and much, much more, all while keeping kitchen time to a minimum since Factor meals are ready in only 2 minutes. No shopping, prepping, cooking, or cleaning up. So head to factormeals.com/lockedoncollege50 and use our code LOCKEDONCollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code LOCKEDONCollege50 at factormeals.com/lockedoncollege50 for 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active with Factor.
But the collective now will also be a part of really, I think generating money toward the revenue sharing figure that is fairly massive, and it's a yearly bill that's due, and because the well-to-do schools, you could theoretically look at if you increase a lot of scholarships and then you are max revenue share, you can get up to where you're, let's 27-30 million a year, maybe more by the time you factor it all in. Yep. And those are new costs that a university wasn't paying. Those are real dollars. So yes, for Texas Tech standpoint, the Red Raider Club now can say we were generating this much per year. Here's this. I think the university, the institution, the academic institution that is sitting on, most of them are sitting on piles of money. I think that Texas Tech has never tapped into that money from an athletic department. And I think that it's time. It's the front door of your university. I don't want to hear some chemistry professor out there with a picket sign going, "You're being mean to academics. We want that money to research." I'm sorry. This is a massive change, and this is very real. And the school is sitting on tons of money that they could also help out the chemistry experiment with research sure. money, and give a nice chunk of a donation to the athletic department too. And then I think then there's the Matador Club that will continue to try to, raise whatever monies they can. And you put this together, and then that now you're allowed to be a max revenue, and we can increase scholarships or whatever Kirby and his brain trust kind of comes up with, because I think every school could look a little bit different here. At this school could look different than that school, and that school does it differently than that, because not everybody's going to be our chips are in the middle of the table. They're just not. Even in the Big 12, which is kind of, I think, what you're some of these institutions may be just fine. Others may go, time out. We may have to alter some things at our current landscape. We have to cut some staff, cut some programs, whatever.
Yeah, that's what I really kind of wonder is, if we feel okay from a Texas Tech perspective, does that mean we feel okay from a Big 12 perspective? And some similar things can be said about some programs in the ACC. And at the end of the day, do we care? Because what the future actually looks like still remains to be determined as far as, well, what you see on the screen there, autonomous for future could be an autonomous to future. But can your program make it across the finish line to join that autonomous to? Well, again, only time will tell. And what I'm talking about is a report from CBS Sports not too long ago, Chris, involving a presentation from NCAA President Charlie Baker to the NCAA Council that essentially outlined a structure for a separate governing body involving what right now is considered to be the Power Four conferences, Big 10, SEC, Big 12, and ACC. And it basically suggests that you want those involved in the major level of competition making the rules for the most major level of competition. Just as an example, NCAA Council has 40 members on it. Only 14 of them, according to this report, represent anything from the Power Four conference. So one of the comments that's gotten a lot of attention was from SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey, that during their media days said, quote, "Not everybody in Division I needs to be involved in the same decision making the same way. Some of those involved in Division I cannot be in the habit of creating risk for others in Division I. Those are hard issues." Some others kind of questioning why, say, Division III needs to be involved in Division I. You get the idea. Not all things are created equal. Even among the Power Four, not all things are created equal. But it kind of seems like at least a simple sort of spot to draw a line and say, okay, among these conferences, clearly those who are investing the most in and generating the most revenue out of, maybe we could confine some rulemaking or governing bodies at least to this category. This seems like something that I don't know if it's presented. I don't know if it comes to fruition in exactly the form it's presented right now, but could evolve into kind of a common sense thing and maybe something else that we feel like is inevitable.
Yeah, and this is, and keep in mind, this is part of what you're talking about here. Is there's an opt-in or opt-out. Schools don't have to opt into this agreement. I think if you're an opt-out, you're kind of you run the risk of being relevant anymore, or because
going
you're
to the back of the bus.
That's right. I mean, just and now you operate on a different set of rules and all those things. And I think that's what this report is about. Is okay. Basically, we would have the opt-ins and the opt-outs, competing for different championships, and we would award two different trophies. But see, now do we all grasp and get a full picture of why this may be called the All-State 12? And why you're talking private equity. I mean, you know what I mean? I mean, this is the harsh reality of why this is this commissioner's task, and to generate as much revenue as he can. Why he wants to put seats next to the head coaches in basketball games, and he wants to create club levels at the Big 12 basketball tournament. He wants to go to Mexico, and he wants to change the name of the league.
Also, Chris, maybe why the most well-resourced from, say, the Big 12 and the ACC could have some interest in consolidating with one another, because eventually the category that separates within those conferences makes those conferences weaker alone. So, I mean, I know that obviously Brett Yormark's job right now is make the Big 12 stronger, make the Big 12 stable, make it the most prosperous that you possibly can. But at some point in time, whenever you begin to look over the fence, and Florida State and Clemson are looking back over the fence, or Louisville or Miami, or some of those that take these things seriously, and again, I'm talking from a cash standpoint, I think it also reminds you why maybe those considerations are being had, because they ain't thinking about it the same, I don't think, at Wake Forest. They ain't thinking about it the same in Cincinnati. And no disrespect to them, but that's what all of these years that are behind us have led us to. So it does make sense as to why a lot of these kind of, I don't know, Chinese fire drill at the stoplight movements are sort of happening, or at least being considered, right?
Yeah, and there's a theory out there that that Brett Yormark may have a plan or big picture thought process that if certain things happen, that he'd like to get to 20 or 24, because at that point, assuming it made sense to ensure, because at that point you can now, you're self-sufficient. You just play each other and everything. Like, you don't have to worry about really anything else. You're always going to be considered a power league with strength in numbers. Again, as long as those are the right ones. You've seen Washington State and Oregon State mentioned as possibles, some of the ACC schools as possibles and all that. Whether that's true or not, I think that's too early to be determined. But keep in mind, this cap, this revenue sharing number, it goes up each year 4%. So next, like the year in 26, you can revenue share 4% more in total than the year before. But it also, I think, is expected to go up along with revenue going up. So as you sign a new TV deal in 30 or 31 or whatever it would be, and so everything's going to be kind of, formulas and percentages and all these things. But bottom line is, I think Texas Tech is in a very good spot with where they are. Are they in as good of a spot financially as a program in one of those two other leagues? I wouldn't say that they are, because those two other leagues teams can basically just take largely what they thought was going to be profit and TV money, and they can go, okay, well, we thought we were going to have a flush savings account, but we'll just dole this out. So they're no worse for the wear per se. But the Big 12, you're going to have to come up with some of this or figure it out, because you're not. But again, that's why the All-State 12, if I can give you an extra couple of $3 million, and all you got to do is refer to everything as the All-State 12 instead of big in front of it. And then we're just going to keep, every school is going to go, I vote for that. Like, that'd be great. That's less money we have to raise, or, whatever. That's why, and that's why the private equity conversation gets real interesting and all that stuff. And that's where a lot of this stuff comes in. So it's wild, man. Everything we've ever known has just all changed so quickly. And this is a massive, real change that I don't know if we have a full grasp on what that looks like.
And I'm just really happy to be a fan of a program that seemingly has got the appetite to compete in these areas. And maybe not only the appetite, but the ability, like never before in this program's history, to actually compete in these areas. I'm sure there were plenty in decades gone by that had the appetite, but you go digging into the pockets and you're reaching the bottom of the pocket a little quicker than you'd like to. Pockets are a little deeper at this point in time. So feel like you were set up well for the future, and can't wait to see what that future holds for Texas Tech. Again, we had a conversation the other day about $1 million softball player, which is just kind of hard to fathom in Lubbock, Texas, or anywhere, obviously, when you're talking about softball. And shout out, by the way, to the UT fan who was getting busy in the comments this week telling us that that is a sign of inferiority, or an inferiority complex, making a signing like that. So I'm just trying to get this straight. University of Texas signs big NIL deals. That's just swinging cojones. Somebody else signs a big NIL deal. Inferiority. Lord, please help me make it make sense. Oh, wait, I'm getting something from above. The Lord says that guy's an idiot. Okay, that clears that up, and that wraps up the conversation for today. Chris, interesting stuff, and only the tip of the iceberg is what we are able to see right now. So can't wait to see where this goes, man. Appreciate your perspectives and your insight as always. Enjoyed it, and we'll see you for the next round.
Keep hope alive, people. We'll all try as we go along and try to figure all this stuff out. But football season getting close, and we'll be all here to break it down. So guns up. Thanks for subscribing, and thanks for watching. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
That's right. We're going to be back football heavy on the other side. We'll have some things to process from a local Texas Tech media day, and fall camp will be upon us. We have almost survived to the finish line. Just hold on a little bit longer. Get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. And of course, one of the best ways to help us grow the show is to comment anything below, idiotic or otherwise. All comers are welcome, and the water is warm. Thanks for making us your first listen. For your second listen, check out Locked On Big 12 on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. For Chris, I'm Casey. Thanks for being out there, and we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.